Good evening and welcome to the November 21st, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting. And I guess we're going to have a holiday in a couple of days. What's it called again? Thanksgiving. So I'm thankful for that. But as customary, I'd like to have a moment of silence before we start. So if everybody could please join me and the board for a moment of silence. Okay, let's pledge allegiance to the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Let's see, what's the next? There are no special actions. Are no changes to the agenda?
There's no changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So this is the first period of public comment. Usually that's for comments relating to things that are not currently on the agenda. Anybody out there? Not seeing anybody walking up to the podium, so let's move on to the next item, which is the 2022 audit presentation. Do we have Mr. Gentili here from Maley? Or did I get your name right? Gentile. Okay. So is that Italian? Yes. Okay, very good.
All right. And everyone on the board's got the handout? That's got the handout, okay. So yes, my name is Mike Gentile. I'm a partner with Maley LLP. Maley is the township's independent auditor. Today I'm going to walk through the 2022 results. There's a couple, just some informational, some trends you'll see in the data, and then as auditors, there's required communication that we put in letter form, but I'll also reiterate it tonight. If you flip to the first page, that's the township's net position on what's called the government-wide basis of accounting. So it's full accrual, meaning, it's more of what you see in the for-profit world, where your capital assets are capitalized onto the balance sheet and depreciated over their useful lives. Long-term debt is a liability on your balance sheet. Pension liabilities are on the balance sheet. So there's some differences here between fund accounting and full accrual, but as you can see here, there's increasing net position now for 3 consecutive years. For 22, you went from $36.6 million, and net position, I'm sorry, I should have defined, assets less liabilities. So for 22, you went from $36.6 million at the beginning of the year to $38 million at the end of the year. A big portion of this, it's about $29 million, is net investment in capital assets. So that's your investment in capital assets net of any related debt. So that is the big chunk of the net position. The next slide will show you some of the components, revenues, and expenses over the 5 years. Flip to the next page. You can see revenues for 22, $18.1 million. That's a 7% increase. The increase primarily attributed to increases in grant revenues. So there was about $575,000 of ARPA money spent in 22. So when that money is spent, because it's federal funds, you recognize the revenue once the money is spent. So there's $575,000 of revenues in 22 for ARPA. There were some smaller increases in the governmental charges for services as well. Expenses, you'll see a bigger jump, going from about 13.5 to 16.7. Largest increase there is pension expense. So again, when the pension liability, net pension liability is on your balance sheet, if the liability goes up, you're going to have increased expenses. So that's the biggest component there on the increase when you look at full accrual method of accounting. The next page is general fund budget for its actual results. Actual revenues exceeded, and now we're on the funds, which I think most people are a little more accustomed to. Actual revenues exceeded budget by $2.1 million. The biggest component of the surplus is in EIT collections. EIT collections exceeded budget by $1.3 million. And then if you look at the expenditures as well, you had a positive variance on expenditures, meaning your actual revenues were $750,000 less than the budget expenditures. Go to the next slide, then there's 5 years of your general fund balance. So again, fund balance, similar in net position, just a different basis of accounting as your assets less your liabilities. So you can see general fund balance after declines in 18 and 19. You built that back up in 21 and 22. General fund balance finishing at $5.9 million as of 12/31/22. The next slide, next page, is now all of your governmental fund balance. So this includes general fund and all other funds. You finished 12/31/22 at $8.5 million roughly. It's a $1.4 million increase from the prior year. These are the different components of it. So just to give you a quick understanding of non-spendable would be basically fund balance that's in a form that can't be spent. A common example would be prepaid expenses. Restricted fund balance means there's external restrictions on it, constraints on it. The bulk of your money there that's in restricted would be highway aid, fire protection funds. Assigned fund balance is money that's intended to be spent for a specific purpose, but it's not externally restricted or it's not committed. So the board or township manager typically makes assignments. They can add assignments, remove assignments. Your assignments are for capital projects and to cover the subsequent year budget. And then unassigned is just everything that's left. It's the residual amount. On the next page are some of the required communications. This comes in written form to you, to the board as well, through what we call the SAS 114 letter. It's really just auditor communications to the board, to governance. So we conducted the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. The audit issues a clean, or what's known as an unmodified opinion. That next bullet point, communication of auditor's risk assessment. This is a relatively new item. I know we talked about it last year. In your letter that the board would have received, it talks about two different, what's called significant risk. Those are identified during planning. It's a new requirement to communicate those. Identified during planning, and all that means is we add more procedures in those areas. The two risks that are on every one of our audits. It's what's called management override of controls. Which means, all entities have internal controls, but management could always sidestep them, override them. So we do certain procedures to address that risk. The next risk that you'll see in the letter to the board was what's called improper revenue recognition, another one that's required to be assessed at all entities. And basically that means is revenue recorded in the proper buckets, periods, and is it recorded for the correct amounts? So again, we do extra procedures to get additional assurance there. That would be like doing external confirmation letters to confirm revenue with external parties. So with all that said, that's done in the planning phase. We do all the procedures. No deficiencies or exceptions to report there. On the next page, just highlighting significant accounting policies are all in the financial statement footnotes. There was a new GASB to implement this year relating to leases. Didn't have a very significant net effect, but if you read deep into the weeds of the 100-page financial, you'll see some mention of that. And then significant estimates, we always communicate depreciation, the OPEB liability, the pension liabilities, fair market value calculations on investments, compensated absences, and then the leases. And then lastly, no disagreements, no issues working with management to get the audit done. We always propose audit adjustments, and management has agreed to and made all adjustments.
Okay.
That's it. Yep, that's everything I had. So
Thank you. I don't believe there's any action required on this item, but
That's correct.
if the members, any member have any questions, I do have a question. You talk about the EIT trend. I think it's on page 16 of the letter, I guess.
In the full
or the
financial,
audit.
the full financial statement?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
It is anticipated that as future projections for overall revenue flatten, there will likely be a need to offset the stagnant revenues with a real estate millage allocation to the general fund. But I'm looking at the numbers in the last 2 years. It looks like an average of 10% increase each year in EIT. What leads you to believe that it will flatten? Because, you know, I don't know if you're aware, we have several projects proposed to multi-level high-rise apartment buildings and so on that could bring in a significant number of new residents.
Yep. So that first section of the financial, it's called the management discussion analysis. So those aren't our words. It would be management's kind of cover story, lead to the report. Yeah. So and actually at the top you'll see, not that it will say unaudited next to it. So at the first maybe 10 to 15 pages, if you look at the full report, you have our audit report in the beginning, then you have maybe 5 to 10, 15 pages of what's called the MD&A, management discussion
Of course, I
analysis.
don't look at all that stuff, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So no, those aren't like opinions of ours.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry.
No,
I
not a
misunderstood.
problem. Yeah.
If there are no other questions, any questions from the audience? Seeing none. Like to thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Anything comes up, just, Micah, you have my information, shoot me an email. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is reports from committees. No minor approvals. It looks like there's something on here. No? No minor approvals. Reports of committees, boards, and commissions. I don't see any committee here to give any report. So the board members, Chairman, Mr. Fisher, do you have any comments?
Yeah, yes, I do have two.
Hold on.
Can
Okay, go ahead.
you hear me well enough?
I can. I'm assuming the microphone is on. People from the audience said they can hear you, so go ahead.
Very good. Number one is that my reason for my absence this evening is I'm home recovering from a minor surgical procedure today, and I wish I could be with you. The other topic is to just remind people that there's each year this time there's a reorganization process. We will have some vacancies on boards and commissions, and I know the administration is working on that, but if anyone's interested in claiming a seat on one of the committees, please send a letter of interest and maybe a short resume or bio to management, and we'll be reminding you over the next couple of meetings. But it's one way to get involved in the township business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fisher. I guess I'm up next. I just wanted to mention that every month for the last few months, I've been having Meet Mac Mondays meetings via Zoom. And on the 13th, I think it was the 13th, I had a meeting. And at that meeting, we discussed several things. Obviously, the budget a little bit, the plastics ban a lot. We're going to get into that later. Talked about the Steeple View Bridge, which was recently in the news. I forget which newspaper it was in. The borough has approved a that they proposed the 2024 budget, and in that budget, they were asking for $1 million grant they're going to apply for to build this bridge. We talked about the Capitol Grill, Borscht Belt Deli, the Lower Dolington Road Trail, and the sale of Shady Brook Farm also came up, and pedestrian safety. So that's my report from that meeting. Anybody else have anything to report?
We had an environmental advisory council meeting where we discussed our upcoming plastics ordinance. And at our latest sewer authority meeting, we voted to make an offer on land for a possible new facility. That's my report. Thank you.
I have nothing to report, but I'll just say to everyone, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Phil?
I have nothing to report, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's see, what's next? No public hearing tonight, I don't think. Nothing under land development. Reports from officials. The engineer does not have a report.
I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has. I have no official agenda items,
Are you
but
sure you're happy to answer
hey,
these questions?
I'm here. Again, happy to answer any questions the board has.
Well, I heard from Mr. Lewis that we're finally going to get the non-recyclable plastic bags off the stop signs on Lower Darlington Road, and that should happen next week, you said?
Possibly next week, yes. We'd like to give about a week's notice, you know, with the signboards that new traffic patterns are coming and notifications on the social media.
Okay, great. I don't think I had any other questions. Ms. Schneider, do you have any questions? I noticed on the punch list, there's a little bit of a disagreement about whether the posts in the guard rails were properly filled in at the bottom. And I didn't notice that. I didn't check it today. But I think your predecessor, Dominic, what's his?
Kandari, yep.
Kandari, said that item in the punch list was addressed, but I didn't see them address filling in the gaps at the base of the posts holding up the guardrail. Did you check that out?
I don't know offhand. We can check that. I'll confirm that with you and get back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that, aside from the trees,
Right.
which I know is a little bit of a concern to some residents who maybe saw a tree that was planted under a utility pole, thought it might be some kind of a danger in the future. Somebody else reported that there might be trees that are underneath the higher trees that shade them too much.
Right. Yeah, so no, we know that there's some concerns with the placement, so we'll work with township staff in order to get them.
But that's a separate item from whether they completed the punch list.
Correct, yep.
Because the trees are where they're supposed to be in the plan.
Correct, yep.
All right. That's all I had. Any other questions for the engineer? No? Okay, we have the solicitor next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item on our report is consideration of authorizing advertisement of the plastics ordinance. The board is aware that the ordinance that would ban the use of single-use plastic bags and other single-use plastic items has been worked on significantly for the last several years by the Environmental Advisory Council. It's been brought to the board. The board about a year ago, or maybe more, adopted a resolution expressing its intent to move forward with this, and it's here now. And the ordinance is before the board not to consider enactment, but to consider authorizing it to be advertised for enactment at a future meeting.
So I guess we need a motion to that effect?
That would be correct. It would be, if the board's of a mind, it would be a motion to authorize advertisement of the plastics ordinance.
I make a motion.
Do we have a motion? We have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from members of the board?
I'd just like to say that now this gives a chance for the public to see exactly what's in it. Not that anything was ever hidden in it, but now it will be public for all to see. It's very simple. It's not complicated. We're starting with the basics, and it's a good first step for Newtown Township.
Okay. I think Mr. Fisher had a point here that he gave me some notes on that Mr. Sander, you wrote a memo regarding a specific change, I think, from the last version. Can you possibly tell us about that?
Yes, a prior version had a 90-day window before the ordinance actually went into effect. In other words, 90 days from the date of enactment of the ordinance till it actually became effective in order to ramp the public up and business owners and folks who use single-use plastics, give them a chance to get used to it and know what the regulations will be. That was changed to 120 days at the request of the Environmental Advisory Council, and there is also a provision that allows the Environmental Advisory Council to recommend to the township manager or his or her designee, which will probably be the code enforcement officer, to allow up to a 1-year temporary exemption from the enforcement provisions of the ordinance to allow a business that either has an inventory of single plastics that they have to get through before they can stop using them, or there's just no reasonable alternative to using single-use plastics. They would be considered, those exemption requests would be considered by the Environmental Advisory Council and recommended to the code enforcement officer. So those changes were made. Just to go through the hierarchy of enforcement, the first offense is a written warning. There is no fine for the first offense. It is a written warning saying you have 30 days from the date of the warning to comply with the ordinance and stop using single-use plastics that violate the ordinance. After that, there is a second offense, which is a civil penalty of $50. A third offense is a $100 fine, and a fourth and any subsequent offense is a $200 fine. So those are the hierarchy of fines and enforcements for the ordinance that have been implemented in this version of the ordinance.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question in regards to the enforcement. When you say they get a written warning for the first offense with a 30-day grace period, but from what I understand is if they have some sort of reasoning that they cannot dispose or they have a lot of inventory, is this when they would supply that to us? And so it wouldn't go into a second offense if they were to have an explanation?
That's correct, Mr. Calabro.
Should that be notated after that, in that sentence there?
Is this, are you looking at the ordinance itself?
I'm looking at the enforcement, number 1.
Okay,
Given a written warning for the first offense with a 30-day grace period before issuing the second offense. But shouldn't it also indicate if they have an excuse as to why they have they're over inventoried or something like that, they wouldn't go into the second offense? From this states that it's going right into a second offense.
Right. I think it's contemplated that the time for somebody to come to the Environmental Advisory Council and say we'd like an exemption is probably between the time that the ordinance is enacted and the time it becomes effective. You would, as a business, you would know whether you're going to be able to exhaust.
We're going to make that assumption?
I think we're going to make that assumption.
Well, you know what they say about assuming.
It's not a good thing.
I just, maybe a brief sentence in there would explain that in regards to a company that may have, who knows, stacks of plastic bags they have to go through.
Right. That's section 10-710 about the 1-year exemption. I see what you mean as far as receiving a written warning and then coming in and saying, here's why we can't comply if they haven't done it before, and then it would not go to a second offense.
So what do we do in this case if we want to, really need to add something?
Well, you can authorize advertisement with the addition of that provision.
So that's what we're doing then. All right.
And I think what's proposed is that if we are shown a receipt of something, a quantity of plastic, single-use plastics that was bought, and they want to use up their inventory, they have to show us a receipt, and we'll gladly say, of course, you can do that up to 1 year.
Right. That's 10-710A2 on the ordinance.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Any comments from? Yes, sorry, Mr. Fisher.
Yes, thank you. I think with Mr. Sanders' clarifications and Mr. Calabro's addition there, I believe this has enough safeguards so we can at least do the advertising and get it posted for people to read.
Okay. If there are no other comments, I'd like to call a question. All those in favor of approving the advertisement of the plastic ordinance with this minor change?
Do we want to get public?
I asked, do you have any public comment? No, there's no comment from the public, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the advertisement of the plastic ordinance with this minor change, I guess?
Yep.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
One, so the motion carries, what is it, 4-1. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on our agenda is consideration of enacting, and this is actually the board taking action on this ordinance, of an ordinance adopting the 2018 International Fire Code as the fire code for the township. This has been advertised for consideration by the board this evening. This happens, a new fire code, International Fire Code, comes out every 3 years. I think that, Chief Forsythe is here tonight, but I would say that he reviews it, determines whether it needs to be, if it's significantly different or makes some substantive changes to the fire code that need to be implemented, he will recommend implementation. In this case, he has recommended the implementation of the 2018 fire code. As the township's fire code, the ordinance has made the amendments to the existing fire code that are required to be made, and it's before the board for action. If the board's of a mind, it would be a motion to enact an ordinance adopting the 2018 fire code, International Fire Code as Newtown's fire code.
Okay. We have a motion, I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Any comments from the audience? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to call a question. All those in favor of approving this motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I don't think there's any. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last item on our report is whether the board wishes to take a position on 2 zoning hearing board applications scheduled to be heard by the zoning hearing board on December 7th. They are both residential in nature. One involves the construction of an in-ground pool, and the other involves the construction of a single-family home on a lot. Does the board wish to take a position on any of those?
Let me ask if there are any comments from board members on these applications? Okay.
I did notice, real quickly, I did notice that there were neighbors that had written letters in support on both of these.
Okay. All right, I don't see any other opposition.
As I like to say, crickets, and therefore we will take no further action on those, and that concludes our report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Solicitor. There's plan manager's report here, plan expiration report. Anything to
Thank you, Mr.
report?
Vice Chair. Before we get to that, the General fund balance this evening is $7,446,415. Plan expirations before the board with no action required. We have Chief Forsyth here to give his monthly emergency services report. Evening, Chief.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on Tuesday night. Different. For the month of October, I'd like to report we had 125 calls for service. We completed 58 fire safety inspections in Newtown Township, 7 use and occupancy inspections, and 2 fire alarm inspections. In Newtown Borough, we completed 15 fire safety inspections and 1 use and occupancy. Our highlights were October 7th, we held a fire prevention program function at the firehouse in conjunction with Market Day. It was very successful. We're trying to get the word out to the public, the need for volunteers, and also the importance of fire prevention and smoke detectors. On October 21st, we completed our last burn, our last live burn. The firefighters are required to go through a live burn, at least 1 per year. We completed that on October 21st. October was a busy month for us, the staff at Newtown Fire Rescue. We responded to and taught 2,600 students in 22 different locations within the municipalities, the borough and the township. So it was a busy month for us, and it was very successful. Members of Newtown Fire Rescue also attend the home football games at Council Rock High School North. We do that for a couple of different reasons, just to get out in the public and also to try to recruit some of the younger people that attend the football games. Unfortunately, we're about as successful as Council Rock North football team, so it's fun to be there, but we're not having very good luck with recruiting members. We are still in the process of trying to recruit members. We just put out 3,800 little box decals on pizza boxes. So if you got a pizza here locally in Newtown, and Trey Fratelli in Middletown Township was also kind enough to participate in this. We're still finishing up, but out of 3,800 so far, we've gotten 2 people that have reached out to us. So we're still coming up with different ideas to try to recruit people. So if there's anybody out there, we would love to have you. We'll train you. We'll buy you the equipment. And we are still in desperate need of volunteers. The department responded to, as I said, 125 calls. We had 39 alarm systems, 69 EMS calls, 2 fumes outside calls, 1 inside, 5 traffic accidents, 2 additional calls to assist the squad, 1 domestic rescue. That was partially a traffic accident in a borough parking lot, and the person was partially ejected from the vehicle and ended up in a creek. So that was our domestic rescue. We had 1 apartment fire, 2 stuck elevators, 1 auto extrication, 1 hazmat incident that we assisted Langhorne Middletown at Crestview North Nursing Home, and 1 automobile fire. I am happy to report that we did an advertisement for candidates to fill the 4 slots, hopefully to come up with a list to hire people. We had 38 applicants, and we conducted the test on Saturday, and everyone showed up for the test, so we are moving forward to complete the testing process and establish a list for the hiring process. So that is my report for the month of October. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
I just want to say I had an incident on my block in Newtown, a fire that was accidentally started, and by the time I got my dog's collar and leash on, you guys were already there putting it out, so great job, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was really close to home.
Yep.
Okay. Any comments from the audience or other questions?
I have a question for the manager, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. On the, I'm sorry, Chief.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
On my favorite planned expiration date form, I noticed that there is a KRE Upper Macungie Associates LP that is a required Board of Supervisors meeting date on 11/29, which will be next Wednesday. We don't technically have a meeting, so what happens in this case?
So that was the date that was continued from the previous hearing. So there's no board meeting that night. It is just a continuation of the hearing.
So does that mean that this board has to show up on that
Yes.
particular day, just to come in and continue and then leave?
Yes.
Okay. Unless, of course, KRE pulls out.
They could provide a continuance if that's their.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Calabro, I have a call into Ed Murphy, who's counsel for KRE. We're going to talk about not having the hearing go forward on the 29th. I don't know that yet. Until you hear something definitively, assume that you'll be here on the 29th. It's not a regular board meeting. It's just a continuation of the hearing. We're going to continue hearing the case, not continue the case to a future date. However, it may turn into that. If they decide they don't want to proceed on the 29th and want to push that date forward, what I'm going to try to do is prevent the board from having to come in to make a motion to continue the matter and then go home. Rather than that, I would request that KRE agree that whatever date we agree on in the future will be re-advertised for a new hearing.
And that date will be the date that we have a meeting, correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because
In this case, can we meet via Zoom instead of having to come into this building?
well, no. It's a public hearing. We have the court stenographer that has to be here. The parties have to be here. But again, I'm going to try my best to prevent the situation where at least 3 members of the board have to come into this room with the court reporter and the parties and make a motion to continue this till some date in December or January or after. I'm going to try to have the continuance requested with the agreement that whatever date is agreed upon in the future will be re-advertised as a hearing date.
Okay. And just as a hypothetical, what if there is no quorum?
Then we can't proceed with the hearing, and it would have to be re-advertised going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, seems to clarify matters a bit. I know that KRE will be happy to see my face, so we'll see what happens. Next on the list is minutes, bills, and Ms. Schneider.
I'd like to make a motion to approve our minutes from our November 8th Board of Supervisors meeting. Can everybody hear me? November 8th Board of Supervisors meeting, approval of minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
2 seconds. We'll go with Phil on that one. Any comments from the board, from the audience? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the passing of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Okay, next.
I'll abstain.
Abstain, okay.
Like to make a motion to pay our bills in the amount of $282,025.69.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second that. Okay. All right, I give that one to you, Dennis. We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Seeing none. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none. Call the question. All those in favor of paying our bills, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next.
Like to make a motion to approve our total of interfund transfers in the amount of $275,511.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Phil?
I was waiting for Dennis. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Seeing none. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 No, motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we're on to old business. And, excuse me? Oh, sorry, public comment. No public comment? Come on. No? All right. Yes. Just turn on the microphone and state your name and where you live. Thank you.
Fran Haller, I live in Newtown Grant. According, for the plastic ordinance, the article that I was reading said that there'd be a charge of 10 cents per paper bag. Who arrived at this amount, and will that be advertised along with when you're doing this plastic ordinance, advertising to the public that they'll have to pay 10 cents per paper bag? That's what I read in the article.
I can read the provision from the ordinance if you want, and then if you want to talk about it. The provision says specifically, a retail establishment may provide a customer a recyclable paper bag, either at the point of sale, inside the store, or through a delivery, if the bag is provided to the customer for a charge of not less than 10 cents per recyclable paper bag. And that, I believe, is the provision that to which you're referring.
Okay, any other comments? You have a comment, Mr. Calabro?
Yeah, Mr. Solicitor, what is a recyclable paper bag?
I will read you the definition of that, Mr.
Okay.
Calabro, because that is a defined term in here. Recyclable paper bag means a paper bag that meets the following, but not including an exempted bag. So here are the following that it meets. 1, it's 100% recyclable. 2, it contains no old growth fiber. 3, it contains a minimum of 40% post-consumer recycled content. And 4, it displays the word recyclable in a highly visible manner on the outside of the bag and is labeled in a highly visible manner on the outside of the bag with the name of the manufacturer, the location, country where manufactured, and the percentage of post-consumer recycled content of the bag in an easy-to-read font size. An exempted bag, which is not a recyclable paper bag, means a bag used inside a retail establishment by a customer to deliver perishable items to the point of sale at that establishment, and may include a bag used to package bulk items such as fruit, vegetables, nuts, grains, etc., a bag used to contain or wrap meats or fishes, or prepared foods for bakery or candies, a bag used solely to contain live animals such as fish or insects sold in a pet store, or for a bag sold in packaging containing multiple bags and packaged at the time of manufacture of the bag.
And this would be the responsibility of the business. I'm sure this is not going to be put on the shoulders of the individual.
That is why businesses are allowed to charge 10 cents a bag to their customers and encouraged to do so. And that is the standard in the nation, in cities, in the townships that have passed this ordinance. We all are using the same terms and language to achieve the same thing. What we are doing is encouraging, so we don't want to say no to plastic bags and then create a problem for paper bags and trees and more, taking down more trees. We want people to bring in their own bags. That's the whole idea. But to give out a paper bag, there will be a standard, and it will have to be a recyclable paper bag. And 95% of the businesses in Newtown Township already do that.
Okay. But again, a person buying something and giving a paper bag, their responsibility is not to make sure it's recyclable. That is the responsibility of the business.
That's correct.
Okay. So
That's the way I understand it, yep.
all right.
Another comment from the public?
Kathy Butler, Newtown Grant. I know I'm late to this party, but really, what are you trying to accomplish? I mean, I get trying to save the environment, but if people are using their plastic bags to pick up their dog's waste, they're reusing them. They're not single-purpose plastic bags. We're reusing them. Either they use that, or they go to the store and buy the rolls of plastic bags to pick up the dog's waste. And do we really want to cause a divide with our restaurants newly into our area and our commercial companies in the Newtown area by doing something like this? I do know that I pick and choose which establishments I frequent if I have to not get a bag.
I hear you. Most of our restaurants, almost all of them, are already participating in this. They don't use non-recyclable items. So Newtown is already ahead of the game. As far as dog waste, I use compostable dog waste bags. And again, if you're picking up dog waste with a single-use plastic bag, you're obviously not using it again. You're throwing it out. So it's not being used again, unless you consider the use to be for poop. I mean, you know, that's not the, you can buy another product that takes the place of that for very cheaply.
I still feel as though you're alienating some of the commercial businesses and so forth in our area by and if it's only a $50, then it's $100 or $200. If I were a business owner in Newtown Township, and I would probably pay the price. A lot of businesses will pay the price.
Again,
If it's not going to be mandatory, why push this and why have this divide in our community?
There is no divide. We have been going through this for years. We had a meeting in last April where we invited every business, and a lot of businesses came, and it was agreed. There wasn't any disagreement on this, none at all. Our township is fully into
I do
this.
know many businesses that are not. Just as nationally, there's one side versus another.
Well, they've had every opportunity to contact us. As I said, this has been going on for a long time here. We've been working on this for years.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Okay, now we can move on to old business, and the first item on the old business is approval of AV system upgrade proposal from Video Gold, Inc. through Co-Stars, not to exceed $125,000 from the American Rescue Fund. Who can talk a little bit about that? Mr. Lewis?
I mean, just generally, Video Gold had proposed upgrades to the AV equipment for this meeting room in the combined amount of $122,000 and change back in the summer. We're putting a cap on the expenditures at $125,000, which is reflected in the budget under the American Rescue Fund for those purchases.
So they came here and they explained the whole thing to us, and basically were able to get what we need from this, do you think?
I'm not an AV expert, but yes.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve this? Is that what we're doing here?
That's correct.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board?
Yeah, I mean, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I see that it's not to exceed $125,000, but I have no idea what the amount is right now. I've seen invoices that are like 2 or 3 different invoices. There wasn't a total invoice of all the numbers added up, so what are we paying?
I added some up.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not my job to add it up. They should be submitting an invoice that shows the bottom line, and that's my question. What is it?
I think that would be a good idea.
Well, tell me it. Tell me what it is.
Mr. Fisher,
I didn't take it down to the dollar amount, but I took it down to the 123,000. And then I get the specifics of the hundreds.
So we're shy of $3,000 off of this total amount that we're spending. 125 is our max, we're spending 123.
That's correct.
Okay. I just think, it's just my opinion, the breakdown of those invoices were so, I don't know, such a mishmash. If somebody had given me an invoice like that, if they were building a house, I would like to know what the bottom line of the house was, instead of me as a purchaser having to go add it up and totaling it up. That was totally uncalled for, and in my opinion, a bad presentation from Video Gold. Just my opinion, just one man's opinion.
Would it help to have a cover letter with those items? There's overall, a summary of each of these pages, because this does go into a lot of detail and does get confusing.
well, I did agree it's kind of confusing. I'm just leaving it up to Video Gold to make good on its promises that it made during our session about improving the quality significantly. And I guess we can hold them to it. If it doesn't work, we could find somebody else to handle our AV system.
Can I just say that I see the breakdown here, I'm looking at it, I know lots of people won't understand a lot of these things, and some I don't, but most of them I do. And what it is a sorely needed upgrade for our room up there, which broadcasts our meetings via YouTube, and I think anybody can attest to the very low quality of product that we put out for people to see. Also, in this room, we have constantly heard about not being able to hear in the back of the room, and it's clear that we need to upgrade this room since our cameras are from 1980, police headquarters, let's just say. So if you want to ask about particular items, I think you could put a list together of what you don't understand, and we could probably get them to come down and explain again to us what it is. But I pretty much understand what it is, and it's everything we need to get the job done.
Well, let me ask the process. It's supposed to go through CoStars. Is that like a bidding situation?
Yes, CoStars is a purchasing consortium, just like where we buy police vehicles through the collective purchase.
So they would go to CoStars and say, here's what we need. How much is it going to cost? Then we'd have to approve that.
No, you're approving that right now. So what we would do is the township, staff would order the equipment that is specified or equal and give it to Video Gold to implement all of this.
All right. So let's talk about how it works with the police department. We allow a certain amount for a new police car.
Right.
They go out and get a bid for it.
Right.
And they don't have to come back to us because it's under what we authorize, right? Is that how that works?
Essentially, yes.
So this would be the same way.
Yes.
They go out and they're going to do an upgrade to our AV system the way they describe, namely high-definition TV, better audio with speakers in the room.
Yep.
And then the necessary equipment up there to handle all this and to get out to YouTube, and the YouTube will be high quality, high definition because of the new cameras and so on. And they'll be able to read my name, right? That's the only thing I want. He promised that. So.
He's promising.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the labor and the cables.
Right. Oh, the cables, yes. So, I mean, I think I'm okay with that. I don't know, we have a motion and a second, correct? I forget. Okay, so any other comments? Any comments from the audience? Can you hear me out there? Okay. I don't see any comments from the audience, so seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. And all those who oppose it, say nay. No. Okay, we got, Kyle, what was your vote?
It was yes.
Okay, so we got a 4-1 in favor of this. Motion passes. Okay. Next is something maybe even less contentious, is the 2024 budget discussion. Anybody want to have something to say about that? We're not approving the budget tonight or anything like that, are we? It's already been advertised. It was advertised in last Sunday's Bucks County Courier Times, but it wasn't available till the Monday, last Monday, the 13th, in the office. The ad was in the Sunday paper. It said you can come and see the budget in the office, but the offices are closed on Sunday.
Right, during regular business hours.
During regular business hours.
Yep, so Monday's the day one.
Monday is day one. So
Yep.
we do have enough time. It has to be 20
Yes.
days advertised?
Yes, we still have enough time.
Okay, so our next meeting is December 6th.
Correct.
All right, and at that point, we might vote to approve.
There will be
the
a
budget.
motion on the agenda for the approval of the 2024 budget.
That's the only question that I had. Any other questions or comments? Any comment from the audience? It says the manager's office. Is that true, or can it be just right on the counter?
There's a hard copy in the office here at the front windows in the codes department, and you can also go online, right on the home page.
Yeah.
And we're advertising the Bucks County Courier. As opposed to, like, nobody gets the
Public notice, it's a public notice.
Yeah, it's a little public notice there.
Actually, the Courier Times is big time. We usually advertise in the Advance of Bucks County, which comes out once a week. We have to have it in a newspaper of general circulation.
Of course, nobody reads those ads, but it's been advertised. Any other discussion relating to that? Okay, seeing none. Any new
Can
business?
I guess,
Sorry?
procedure to changes, can you go over that, Mr. Sander?
Procedure to,
Changes to the budget.
the budget can be amended between reorganization and, no?
No, I'm talking about the approval. If we were to make changes, if we were to request changes upward or downward,
Oh, right.
So you can cut, not to
Yeah.
interject, but you can cut out of it an unlimited amount.
okay?
If you increase any revenue or expenditure in any major category more than 25% or 10% in the aggregate, then you need to re-advertise for a period of 10 days.
Okay. But the budget still would have to be approved at least by, well, not at least by December 31st.
Correct.
Okay, so if we were to request a budget which would indicate no tax increases at all, could that be done?
Yes.
Okay. And what effect would that be to our general fund? It just,
So there's no increases proposed for the general fund
Okay.
this year. They're to the various other funds, the fire protection fund, debt service fund, and that's all.
Okay. Just a thought, I'm not saying, that's all. That's all I have.
Okay. Any new business? I don't see anybody coming forward with any new business. I think that's the last item. Is there an executive session necessary tonight?
No, Mr. Chairman, there's not.
So I think that's all we have. So I'm going to say this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for coming in, and such a rainy night. Have a great holiday.
Thank you, everyone.